Welcome to the Final Score Network and the Final Score Podcast, presented by Team Anders Realtors. I'm Andy. He's former NCAA student athlete and co-host.
Ryan, Cam, two-hand monster flush off the inbound. Ryan, Cam, slam, jam.
Subscribe to us on Podbean, the Apple Podcast Store, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at TheFinalScore35 and TikTok at AGSpartanFan35. Oh, and one more note before we get started.
I'd like to apologize to anyone I've not offended yet. Please be patient. I'll get to you shortly.
It's March 20th. The best weekend in sports is over. Sad there's not hoops on for another 3 days. I don't know what to do with myself after basically having an imprint of myself in a chair for the last 4 days. But it was a wild weekend filled with a lot that we will cover in this podcast. Lots of great things, some bad things. We're going to get back to our normal kind of around the world today, podium, tee-up. We'll talk a little bit about golf at the end of this, but it's mostly going to be basketball again. But, yeah, hope you all have your brackets still going, because I don't. Not even close. I'm not going to win any money. I'm going to lose $40 off of the brackets that I put money into. That's great. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. We love March Madness for that, and I love the upsets that we'll get to later. But we'll start with the podium. I'll go first. The Detroit Lions. This is a complete 180 from basketball. Football, the Lions. It's free agency right now in the NFL. New league year started last Wednesday. If you haven't seen this, the Lions they're cleaning up in free agency. They got three defensive backs, guys that are starting caliber kind of guys to shore up that secondary, which was one of their weaknesses last year. I'm really happy with the way Brad Holmes is doing. He's restructuring contracts, making them less so they can create more cap room to eventually pay more guys later. Picked up Graham Glasgow, who's probably going to start at guard for them, which is pretty cool. They still have money left, and to get like a receiver or something like that, defensive tackle, it's awesome. Brad Holmes is doing this correctly. We've never seen an offseason like this as Detroit Lions fans, with them actually being competent. So hopefully they can continue into the draft. They can build next year and maybe win the NFC North, because it's going to be as weak as ever. I'm very happy with them for once. The trajectory is good. If only they wouldn't mess it up, which they inevitably will eventually. But we're going to roll with the good times. That's all I've got.
All right, for mine, fresh off of a 4 a.m. wake-up call, come back from a long golf weekend in Florida and tired. This is top of mind, especially because I couldn't stay up to watch it since I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, is why NCAA, and I know one of the reasons why, so it's somewhat rhetorical, but why do you have to play Sunday games tipping at around 10 o'clock? I get it on Thursday, Friday when you're playing 16 games a day, and you do a really good job spreading those out. The excitement is there. You're kind of pumped. You're going on adrenaline. You know, if you're binge watching and you're taking a couple of days off of the office or whatever, or like I did, I was mixing golf and basketball watching. Totally get that. Don't even mind late game Saturday night. That's fine. But it's like, what are you doing with the Sunday night game? I mean, a 10 o'clock start East time, which you have to imagine, yes, that was a West-ish game, TCU Gonzaga, but still, you know, there's national interest in there. It was over after midnight. It was over after my bedtime and most people's bedtime. They had to get up and go to work on Sunday after they binge watched and drank a lot of beer on St. Patrick's Day and everything for 4 days. I just don't understand why you can't double up earlier in the day and be done earlier in the day. But then you're the same people who play the college football championship game on Monday night at 8:30 instead of playing it on Saturday when all the other damn football games in the season are on Saturday. So that's kind of part one. Part two, because for some reason the resort we were at refused or didn't know how to turn the channels off of ESPN in their sports bars and such. And so anytime we went in to grab a bite to eat and wanted to watch some of the tournament, we had to watch it on our phones on YouTube TV because all they had on was the women's tournament. And I'm going to preface this by saying I have no problem with women's sports. I have a daughter who played a college sport. I respect women's sports. I think they're great. They're great. All sports are great. I will say this. I am about tired of hearing all the complaining and the bitching and the moaning about equity and equality between the men's and the women's tournament. Now, I know some of it stemmed from the women were playing basically in a quasi, hotel ballroom a year or two ago, or, their accommodations might not have been as good. Now, I will say this. There's no excuse for the accommodations not being up to snuff with the men, for sure, 100%. But I'm sorry. Even if you have a daughter that plays college basketball, take off those rose-colored glasses and sit around and look at you. From somebody who saw it, you're playing in cavernous, empty arenas. Arenas that seat 18 to 20,000, just like the guys, maybe on the small side 15,000, and there's maybe 2,000 people there. It's not a good look on TV. There's no crowd noise. There's no intimacy. Where is the benefit and the equity in that? Is the equity all about playing in the same size arena, so then therefore, hey, we're equal? It has nothing to do with that. If you want equity, do your freaking research and find some hotbed spots where people just love college basketball in general, and they don't care if it's men's or women's. A lot of market research can happen these days, folks. And here's kind of a newsflash for you. Find a good Division III arena or a good small arena and fill that to the rafters. Come to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and West Michigan, and play at Holland, at Hope College, and play in Grand Rapids at Calvin College. And you'll probably fill those gyms to capacity to watch these games with interest. It does nothing for the sport of women's basketball to be playing the same arenas that the guys are with a 20th of the crowd. It's horrible. It's an awful look, and that is not equality. You are looking for the wrong things for equality if it's all about arena size and that kind of stuff. You're getting the TV push on ESPN. Women's tournament is exclusively on ESPN. The games are all over the place. I don't think it's smart to be up against the men's at the same time, to be honest with you. I would play it on completely opposite days. That's just me, but you want equality, then put it out there as a product when the guys aren't playing. And the second thing is put them in smaller arenas and do your damn homework. I'm not saying put them in a ballroom. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have some, equality in this, but equality does not equal arena size. That's not good for the game. So maybe if the wrong people would shut up and the right people would do their homework, you could actually make yourself a pretty good tournament with good crowds and celebrate the women that are playing this sport and make it look good for them. Because who the hell wants to go and play in front of only their mom and dad and their brothers and sisters? Nobody. You want to play in front of fans. And so you can figure it out. Just take the time to do it. Stop screaming and taking the podium to just bitch about equality and equity and look for the ways to make it equitable instead of forcing equity and equitability on things. All right.
Yeah. Nice. All right, tee up this week. We're teeing up. I saw this today. It came out. Kind of pissed me off, to be honest with you. Tee up. St. Francis University, Brooklyn. They're in the NEC Northeast Conference. This is Division I school. Getting rid of all athletics. What?
For what? Because of budget? Like,
What are
you going to do with the student athletes that are on
all these
scholarship?
kids, what's going to happen to them? You're going to help them find a new place for
Sports
sure?
usually draw schools in. I mean, students into schools. Even the small schools, sports will draw them in. Somebody that wants to put D1 on their resume, they'll go and play at a small school for a small school experience. That sounds like another woke New York Northeast thing to me.
Yeah, I don't get it. What are you gonna? You better help these kids find places then, homes, because if these kids are left out to dry, thinking they were gonna get a 4-year scholarship from this place and then just poof gone,
right?
That's some bush league.
It's kind of right up there with making the D3s like St. Thomas in Minnesota, or the D2s like Merrimack. We'll get to that in a little bit more in a minute. Have to wait and not get to go to their tournament or the NCAA tournament because they're on probation as they grow into Division I. It's another bit of the NCAA, or this is an institution making the decisions, nonsensical, stupid decisions. We have stupid people making stupid decisions that are impacting young people without a thought. It's ridiculous. These are also the same people that let a biological male swim in the NCAA championships and celebrated that as if that was a Woman of the Year caliber. Sick, gross,
not
threw
cool.
up on my shoes, disgusting.
Not cool. All right, let's tee up around the world time. First round, we're going to start in the top left corner, south, and we're going to make our way down. Bama, easy. We don't even need to talk about that. Maryland versus West Virginia. That was a good game.
Yep,
Maryland got down, or were they up early? I can't remember.
It was kind of a back.
They were
and forth
down
game.
and then got up and then got down, then finished really well.
West Virginia had a look at the end to win it.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty entertaining game. Pretty athletic teams. Julian Reese played really well in that game.
Got in foul trouble too. Oh no, that was the second game that he got in foul trouble.
That was a good one. San Diego State Charleston. That was a pretty much a rock fight. Charleston kind of had their chances there for a little bit, then kind of fell off, kind of missed shots, made some dumb.
And that was the
decisions.
first stretch of wrong picks on the left side of the bracket for me. I had Charleston in an upset there. Some of these games I didn't see because we were either watching them while we were playing golf or whatever, but certainly was following all the games.
One of my favorite first round games and one that I had picked correctly was Furman, Virginia. Just dissect that. Furman down pretty big, comes back, goes up, and then Virginia kind of storms, takes that 7-point lead, and then Furman starts clawing. They get down to 4, make the 2 free throws, and then freaking Kihei Clark, a
Perfect
5-year
trap.
player, guy that made one of the more heads-up plays in their history, getting it to
Against Purdue.
Diakite back in 2019 that sent them to the Final Four eventually. Gets trapped in the corner, has a timeout, doesn't use it, and thinks sees his guy open, just hurls it down the court, gets picked off, and you're like, all right. I'm like, all right, this could happen. Toss it ahead to a guy that is like a 25% three-point shooter, was 0 for 6 from the field, nothing but net. Game over, 13 over 4, an improbable finish, and you got Kevin Harlan and Stan
Great
Van Gundy
TikTok
going
video.
crazy.
They're going crazy.
If
You
you
had a
haven't
good
seen
look
it,
at an
please
announcer.
watch it.
You just listen to the announcers.
Oh.
And you don't usually see them, but it
Kevin
was
Harlan
great
is
to see.
unbelievable.
Great to
Stan
see.
Van Gundy was excellent too. I liked him. He did a really good job. But that game was crazy.
And I liked Furman going into the tournament. I didn't necessarily like the matchup with UVA, so I picked UVA. But
Virginia has an issue. Since going back to 2018, I mean, they lost as a 1 seed. Then they win a national championship, which is all great. Then 2021, they lose to a 13 seed Ohio. Last year didn't even make the tournament. This year they lose to a 13 seed Furman.
kind of like Purdue,
Yep.
except for the not the national championship.
Yep.
Get to that in a minute.
Creighton, NC State, that was another good one. A lot of high-level athletes. Creighton prevailed, probably because they're bigger. That was fun to watch. The Baylor, UCSB, Baylor handled them pretty good. I thought
UCSB hung around for.
I thought they'd hang around a
two-thirds of the
little
game,
longer,
maybe.
but then Missouri, Utah State. This is a very popular 10 over 7 pick.
I had
Missouri
it.
kind of stifled them.
Yeah.
They really did. They shot it well. Utah State couldn't score. I thought this game, the over/under was like 150, and it was only like 155, and they only scored like in the 60s.
Yeah,
was
unders.
like
The unders
65-50.
ruled the weekend. I saw.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you why. The ball
The
that they're
officiating.
using, the officiating, but the ball they're using is not the same ball they use during the season. They use a Wilson ball, and other usually use like a Nike ball. For your, like Michigan State uses a Nike ball when
yeah.
they play, and this is the Wilson new evolution.
Right, it's the tournament ball. Yeah.
Right, and if you notice, the 3-point shooting is hot garbage.
Yeah, it's true. Something about it.
Just-
Something to study.
Then this was another big upset.
This
bracket.
was the upset of the tournament until it wasn't the upset of the tournament.
The Tigers, how many years that is? 96, so 27 years after Pete Carrill
and their coach.
was on Princeton then, beat UCLA, 1996.
Yeah.
Mitch Henderson. Huge upset, down, went on a 7-0 run to finish over a Arizona team that was playing really well.
A lot of people had
Hot.
our pool had them in the
Coulda had
championship,
them.
had them winning it.
Had them as a borderline 1 seed. In freaking Princeton, the Tigers, they just took it to them. They hung around
They
and
rebound the piss out of the
I mean,
ball. They're fundamental.
fun to
They can
watch.
shoot.
Fun to watch. That was impressive. I loved seeing that. Brings us to the East region.
Yeah, there was the upset until
The upset of all upsets. The smallest team in Division 1 per Ken Palm versus the largest team in Division 1 per Ken Palm.
A school with a $2.3
The
million
Knights.
basketball budget versus a school with a $133,000 basketball budget. A school who has a regular, athletic director running media versus a junior at the school running media relations. And a school that won the Big Ten and the Big Ten tournament pretty handily, minus Penn State's come back a little bit in the tournament, against a school who lost in its tournament and got in because aforementioned former D2 team Merrimack couldn't get into the dance because they're not qualified yet. So all these things have to line up.
The Knights of Columbus.
And I'm sitting there in Orlando watching it with my buddies at dinner. I'm holding it up on my phone because we were watching it. And then we went to go catch the shuttle to go to get dinner. And we're watching it, and then Purdue was running away. We're like, and then we go back to it, and hey, they're sticking with it. They're sticking with it. And we watch the last couple minutes. Unbelievable.
Tobin Anderson also was a Division II coach last year and brought 3 of their starters from Division II with them, and they won that game.
And then we're talking also about a school, Fairleigh Dickinson. Half of their athletics programs compete in the D3 level. Half are D3, half are D1. Small, little, tiny school, no business beating Purdue. Best game plan. The game plan that I've kind of called for all year.
Hey, we've said this all along.
They kind of let Edey get his early, and they got in the face of the shooters in the first half and kind of got them off their game a little bit, and they were missing shots, and then they swarmed Edey in the second half and left those shooters open, and because the shooters were shooting like shit, and they shot like shit, and they lost.
Shocking. The Purdue freshman guards couldn't handle the pressure like we've been saying.
Boyer made a couple down the stretch, but not really.
Year long, we've been saying. I literally said this. I said, Purdue, if they get a bad matchup, they're not going to make it from the tournament. They got a matchup that was favorable in terms of height, but Fairleigh Dickinson pressed them. They sped them up. They did exactly. Purdue played the game that they had no business wanting to play.
Purdue was too one-dimensional going in. I mean, Edey's a great
player. Their guys
player,
were scared to shoot the ball because they want to dump it into Edey.
Right. They didn't know what to do when they couldn't get it into Edey, and that's never. You can't be one-dimensional in the tournament. You have to be multifaceted.
Guard play wins in March, guys.
You've got to be able to. Yeah, it's true.
Look at the results from this.
Well, even go back to the '80s. Ralph Sampson was great. Virginia didn't win one. Patrick Ewing was great. He got to the finals 3 years in a row. Only won one. Olajuwon was great. He got to 3 Final Fours. He never won one. Those are big guys even in the '80s. Guards win, and you need a supporting cast. One guy can't beat you, and Fairleigh Dickinson said, we're going to let Edey get his in the first half, and then we're going to totally switch it up, and we're not going to let him get his in the second half, and the rest of you guys are going to beat us, and they couldn't do it.
Packed it in.
They couldn't do it.
Phenomenal. The Knights of Columbus.
Great coaching.
Didn't even have a band there. Dayton's band had to come and play their fight, learn their fight song, and play
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool. That's what March Madness is all about. Then Memphis, FAU, another great game down to the wire.
Memphis a bunch of AAU thugs, though. I'm so glad to see them gone. Penny Hardaway and Juwan Howard can leave the NCAA forever, as far as I'm concerned. Penny Hardaway threw his water bottle, slammed it down the floor after they lost, like a pouty little bitch. I'm glad they lost. Can't stand them.
Yeah, they're very similar to Michigan. Duke, Oral Roberts. I thought Oral Roberts had a chance. No. Duke dismantled
Duke looked
them.
like the team that they had been coming into the tournament.
Dismantled them. Then Tennessee, Louisiana. Tennessee did not look great for 90% of the game. They had 10% where they pulled away, and then Louisiana kind of crept back into it. But they just couldn't make open shots. It wasn't enough. Kentucky, Providence. Kentucky handled them pretty good. I mean, Providence was...
They hung there. It was like 6-7 point game or whatever.
Normal 6-11 kind of game. Kansas State, Montana State. Montana State stuck with them a little bit too, but just not good enough. Michigan State, USC, another one of those games where blowout, close, and then kind of blow it open at the end.
Well, and Michigan State got back to its roots and played defense, and they locked down the Pac-12 second leading
Boogie
scorer.
Ellis, locked down Jake Peterson. Mm-hmm. I mean, their leading scorer, I think, in that game was that guy that scores like 5 points a game. That big guy, he had like 16.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, that was a nice performance.
It was impressive by Michigan State.
A precursor to the next around the world spot, but Michigan State only hit 5 threes in that game, and prior to that, hitting 5, they had not won if they had hit less than 5 in a game. So they hit 5, and they, in 5 or less, they had not won a game. So then that made them have 1 win, and then that's kind of a tee up for the next round when we get to spot 2 in the around the world. But yeah, I was impressed with Michigan State's guard play. I thought Akins played really well.
Yeah, he did. Well.
Hauser had a great game. He's just been continuing his good stretch. Mahdi had his flashes. Hall will do a thing or two. I wish he could put together a complete game, and he's going to probably need to here this weekend for Michigan State to continue to play. But that was a good, solid win against a good USC team. So 7-10 games, they're close. They're pick-ems, basically.
Yep.
And I was happy that Michigan State got back to their defensive roots in that game for sure.
Yep. Then Marquette, Vermont. Vermont was hanging, and then Cam Jones scored 18 points in a row for Marquette. He's an impressive player.
That dude can shoot.
Yeah, he can. He's good. He's a nice player. And they end up winning pretty handily. Houston, Northern Kentucky.
Go to the other side
Now,
of the
we
bracket.
said-
I got a lot more games right on this
We
side.
said that this was probably going to be the closest 116 game. I remember that. We said if anyone had chance, it was Northern Kentucky. They did. They hung with Houston for a lot of that. Sasser was kind of banged up, but then Houston kind of imposed their will a little bit down the stretch to pull away and make it a double-digit game. Iowa-Auburn. First of all, thank God Iowa lost, because I'm tired of Connor McCaffrey. I'm tired of Fran McCaffrey. I'm tired of Philip Rebracha and his 26-year-old ass. Go get a job. I'm tired of your crap. Get out of here. Leave. They tried to do the same thing they did against Michigan State. Got down, came back, and then Auburn just was on fire shooting the ball and basically had a home crowd to go with it. I'm glad that Auburn won that. Miami Drake. I picked Drake. I thought that was going to be a big upset. Miami played pretty well, but Drake, they couldn't score down the stretch. They were missing wide open shots, making dumb decisions, dumb turnovers, and Miami ended up squeaking that one out. Then Indiana, Kent State. I caught the first half. Miller Kopp, why were you wearing a headband, dude? You look like an idiot. That's why you lost in the next round, which we'll get to, but beat Kent State. Kent State, not a great offensive team.
We didn't have any 5-12 upsets this year.
No,
Rare.
very rare. Iowa State, Pitt. Pitt just
Blitzed them.
Iowa State.
19-2 run out of
Iowa
the
State
gate.
was on a horrible trajectory going into the tournament, and they proved it. They were not very good.
And every year, somebody that wins a play-on game as an 11 goes on a
Yep.
mini run that ended for Pitt the next round. But
Then Xavier, I thought Xavier was going to lose to Kennesaw. Kennesaw had them and then just couldn't make shots down the stretch, and Xavier made some plays. I mean, they're a pretty good team. But it was impressive for Kennesaw, and I like Abdur Rahim. He seems like a good coach. He's doing a nice job. A&M Penn State. Told you all about Penn State.
we liked Penn State going into
Andrew
that.
Funk, 8 threes. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he was. If he would have been that hot against Texas, they might have gotten the win against Texas in the next round.
Impressive. And A&M was playing really, really well. That was great.
Yeah,
Texas,
they did the SEC title game and got smoked in the SEC title game, but
yeah.
had been playing extremely well for sure. Yeah,
Texas kind of blitzed Colgate. We kind of saw that coming. It was close for a bit, but Texas too athletic, too big for them.
Kansas smashed Howard. That
Kansas
wasn't
smoked
close.
Howard and close. Arkansas, Illinois, another team. See you later, Illinois. You waste. Brad
A
Underwood.
lot of talent.
Brad
Horribly
Underwood
coached.
cannot coach. That team they were an AAU team made up of a bunch of random guys trying to get theirs. I mean, that's really what it was.
Evidence that the transfer portal is not the way for everybody to build. For some, it is.
Arkansas was kind of stumbling coming in the tournament. They played pretty well against Illinois, and then we'll get to what they did later. But impressive by Arkansas. Then St. Mary's, VCU. I thought VCU was going to win. St. Mary's, I was wrong. Played really good defense. Did enough to win. VCU, I didn't think was great. Captain agrees. Then UConn, Iona. Iona up 2 at half, and then UConn imposed their will. I think this is a team that can win a national championship.
Yeah,
I
UConn
really
looks
do.
good.
I mean, they fit your mold of Ken Palm top 25 offense, whatever, or
Top
40
40
offense,
offense,
top
top
25
20,
defense, and
top 21,
I mean,
yeah.
they can come at you. They have guards, they have shooters, they have a really good big guy in Sanogo and Klingen. He's 7'1" and can move. They're tough. They're really tough. Then TCU, Arizona State, right down to the freaking wire again. TCU,
Another
buzzer
playing
beater.
game team, Arizona State.
Arizona State's they're literally Jekyll and Hyde. They could be the best team ever, like they were against Nevada. They look like a Final Four caliber team. How are they an 11 seed? Then back to earth against TCU, but still hung in there. TCU with a nice dub there though. Then Gonzaga, Grand Canyon held in there for a little bit. Then
Gonzaga's got the number one offense.
I mean, they're really good.
Showed.
They can score the ball at will, really. Northwestern, hell yeah. Nice win.
Looked really good against Boise State.
Yeah.
I picked Boise State against probably against better judgment, but I just thought that Boise State was playing well, and they had some of the metrics, and that'll teach you to go with just metrics because Northwestern had a good season, and they're 2-0 in first round games in the last 3-4 years that they've actually made the tournament.
The two times they've been in the tournament, they've won first round game. And then UCLA just blitzed Asheville, which we thought was going to happen. I think they should have been a 16 and flip flop with Northern Kentucky.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. So for me, I went on my bracket of integrity. Of course, we all have multiple brackets, but the one that I shared on the podcast last week, that put me at 22 out of 32 in the first
was the
round.
same as you in that round.
Shout out to Polo in the Final Score podcast bracket contest. 28 out of 32 in the first round. A little bit of that is luck, but still, that is a red hot pick. And usually most years you figure 24 is a good first round score, and he had 28. That's pretty impressive. All right, moving on to round 2.
It's round 2 time, baby.
So,
Bama, Maryland.
Yeah, Bama, Maryland.
I didn't really see it.
I saw a little bit of that one. Maryland got in some foul trouble. Reese got in some foul trouble, and it was a game for a little while. But then Bama just kind of pulled away. Miller imposed his will. I know he's a little bit dinged up, and there's, everybody wants to ask questions about the whole shooting thing, which I get, but at some point, okay, you're beating a dead horse. We get it. We understand. You don't need to manufacture any stories or whatever. It is what it is. We've covered it ad nauseum. It's time to move on.
Yep.
Bama definitely. Bama is also the beneficiary of a bracket that is the sum of the seeds left in the South is 27. So then you get to, I had Charleston playing UVA. I had both of those wrong. So it was San Diego State against Furman. And San Diego State
looked really good against
good
Furman. Their
against
defense is for real. I'm not a Brian Dutcher fan, as he's a cheater, but I would love to see them beat Alabama. I would love to see them beat Alabama because I'm sick of Alabama.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that either. Then you had Creighton, Baylor. Creighton looked mighty impressive, and they're kind of putting it to Baylor yesterday evening, and then Baylor kind of crept back into it, and then Creighton ran away. I had Creighton winning against Baylor in my bracket. I had Creighton in the Final Four, so they're about on par with where I expected them to be. And then I had, of course, Utah State, Arizona in the second round, and it was not that. It was Missouri, Princeton, and Princeton blitzed Missouri. Missouri, a good first-year coach, they were a nice team, but Princeton just, I got to see a good chunk of that game, and Princeton is just fundamental and good.
Yeah, they're well coached.
I don't know that they can beat Creighton, but they'll probably give them a run for their money.
I mean, why not? They beat Arizona. They're very similar. Mm-hmm. Maybe Creighton probably has better guard play, but still. Which brings us to the East.
FDU and FAU.
FDU, fairly big as I was impressed. They held in there pretty good for the most part. I mean, FAU was bigger, very athletic, very good guards, veteran guards.
Kind of a Bush League move with the 360 dunk attempt or whatever at the end of the game. Their coach apologized for it. It's like, imagine if somebody at Michigan State did that. Izzo would have probably gone out and tackled him on the court himself. I mean, that's like, come on. Time and place, guys.
Well, that brings us to a hilarious game. Duke, who we don't like, was really hot, and then Tennessee with the always just underachieving Rick Barnes. Tennessee punched Duke in the mouth from the get-go.
Literally, Filipowski in the face.
I mean, he was getting hit by Drago's son, that whatever his name is, Plavich or whatever his name is, just a massive human being. Tennessee was more physical than Duke. They wore them down and got the win. I mean, I had Duke going to the Elite Eight.
I had them in the finals.
They were playing some of the best basketball in the country, and just Tennessee punched them. Came out in waves, played defense, and won that game.
Duke's weakness came out in the fact that they are not a typical Duke shooting team. Like, they are not a very good shooting team. And that shone through big time. Let me see if I can find some of the metrics for Duke.
They didn't have a shooter.
Duke, 245th in three-point shooting percentage ranking, and 126th in turnover. Now, mind you, Tennessee is 259th in three-pointers and 108th in turnovers. But Tennessee wants to muddy things up. They want to kind of make it, a rock fight, and they did, and the refs let it go that way. And physical. Duke didn't have the shooters to pull them back into the game. So as much as, that's my problem, is that year in, year out, I'm never gonna, or I rarely will win a bracket contest because I root against my own picks. I mean, rooting against your picks obviously has nothing to do with whether you get them right or not. But I was glad to see Duke go out, even though it basically busted my bracket because I had them playing in the finals. So
Yeah. Kentucky, Kansas State, physical game. Physical.
I saw a stat. Kentucky had something like only 5 second half turnovers. They out-rebounded Kansas State by 19, and they lost. Like,
Because they're
statistically,
stupid. They shot the ball pretty terribly.
yeah, they're another team that doesn't really necessarily shoot. They should be a better three-point shooting team. Sheedway was a man. He had like 28 and 19
He
or
had
something
25
like
rebounds in the first game.
Yeah, he's
9 and 25. He's not
unbelievable.
even that athletic. Like vertically, he's a position rebounder.
Yep. Get some
Just
position
got a
and
nose
he's
for the
strong.
ball.
Mhm.
But Kansas
So that's
State's
two blue
impressive.
bloods out in one afternoon,
Kansas,
basically, or
yeah.
in one weekend.
Kansas State's impressive though. Noel's a really nice player. Johnson's a nice player. They have some nice complementary guys that can shoot it. Good athletes. They're a tough team. Well coached by Jerome Tang, my National Coach
Yeah,
of
it's
the Year
a
pick.
team who had 2 players on campus when he came in and got hired. And he had to build that team
Impressive.
completely out of transfers because there was nobody left. He's done a hell of a job there, and Michigan State will get to see that firsthand because Michigan State got a very emotional big win against a team that's all built
Hottest team in the country.
built
maybe.
a lot like them. Shaka Smart is kind of an Izzo disciple, is not on the Izzo coaching tree, but really patterns his coaching style after him. And we're talking about one of the top 2-point shooting teams in the country. They outscored Michigan State by 27 from behind the arc. Michigan State made 2 threes the entire game, where they'd been something like 1 in 19 in games when they had less than 5. And the one was, I think, when they won the other day with 5, and they made 2, and they found a way to win that game.
Just gritty. That's vintage Michigan State.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
toughness, rebound, run. I mean, that was textbook.
Izzo compared it to the 2000 team having to be in kind of a fight and be physical. I mean, Mahdi made a couple of mistakes and then was thinking, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And then we went small ball. Then they put him back in, and he just went gangbusters down the end. He had
played
2 huge
phenomenal.
blocks. He had a couple of big rebounds.
He rebounded
He
perfectly.
had 10
this
rebounds. He
weekend.
had 8 points. He played good defense. He was like early season Mahdi, especially yesterday against Marquette. Hogard he had 5 turnovers because of 2 offensive fouls, but he played a pretty solid game. Walker, I've said all along, has got to be the guy that takes over, and he did take over.
He's the alpha
Joey
dog.
was clutch. He had a double-double. Akins had a little bit of an off shooting night. He had a couple
Played
threes,
great
literally
defense all weekend. Though.
couple
My
threes,
gosh.
literally do everything but go in the hoop. Hall, has his moments, but
Made
Cooper
the
again.
offensive rebound that was massive in that game. Then credit to him, trim the rotation. Is basically a 7-man rotation. Carson Cooper, that man has a future.
He's played really well in both the games this weekend. And the thing is Kohler's gives Michigan State a much better post presence on offense. He's just not there defensively, but he doesn't look disengaged on the bench like other players.
No, he loves
can.
Michigan State.
Like he
loves
sees like,
Michigan
hey, I got to be able to play defense to play, and Cooper plays defense, and he's longer and he's more athletic,
Good
and he's
finisher.
a good, he's good. He's a rim protector, not where he needs to be, but he at least offers that. And Kohler just doesn't. But you don't see any pouting from him off the bench, which is great. And yeah, I mean, Michigan State withstood some foul trouble by Hogard. That's kind of when the wheels fell off in the first half. Again, locked down the Big East Player of the Year. They locked him down.
Lockdown Jones pretty good, and Joplin for that matter. I mean, those guys didn't do 60 points. A team that scores like 80 a game.
But to go minus 27 differential from the 3-point line and win by 9 is pretty crazy.
Yeah, and
That was
the
a big win.
officiating was as poor as I've seen.
Yeah, it was bad.
I mean, Marquette had like 7 straight fouls called against Michigan State in a stretch there. Just ridiculous. But Michigan State, tough as nails. Going to New York to the Garden.
Tyson's home.
Yeah, not a place where we played well in the past, but hey, crazier things have happened.
Got to the Final Four out of
last
there
2
before.
times a 7 seed has been in the regional that's been at the Garden, gone to the Final Four, won a national championship. So anything's possible. Phenomenal by Michigan State there. Second round up in the upper right, Houston, Auburn. Auburn blitzed them in the first half, and then Houston said, no, 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 no.
Yeah, Auburn made like 2 shots in the second half and couldn't buy a free
Just
throw.
locked
Houston
them up.
Houston made all their free throws, I believe, and just like ran away with that game. Houston's a scary looking team if they can stay healthy for sure.
Yeah, they're good. And Kelvin Sampson's a cheater, but he's a really good coach. He is.
Well, and I mean his cheating that at least that I'm more aware of was over texting people. That's kind of like whatever. That's not the same kind of cheating that like Bruce Pearl and Sean Miller and some of those guys are doing or did, or Bill Self or whatever. So
dollar bills.
he's just a good coach, good defensive coach, and that's a good team. That's an impressive team. And it'll be a fun matchup with
Miami
in the Sweet 16 because Miami blitzed Indiana.
Indiana looked like crap.
Leaving Michigan State the last Big Ten team standing.
Who's the class of the Big Ten? Yeah, Indiana's. That's kind of what we thought would happen, right? I mean, they can look really good or they're awful. There's never really an in between. They looked awful last night. I mean, Trace did pretty decent, but no one else did it. Hood Schifino was like 6 for 23 from the field.
Yeah, a lot of those threes were down the stretch trying to catch up, but still, yeah, Indiana just kind of looked out of sorts last night.
And Mike Woodson kept saying, "We're not being tough enough. We're not being tough enough." They weren't. I mean, they weren't. They were sissies.
Yeah. They'll work to change that.
Miami's fun to watch, though. I'm not a fan of them, but they're fun to watch with all their guards and athleticism. They're a good team. Pitt, Xavier, the Sean Miller Bowl. He played at Pitt. And obviously he's the coach of Xavier. Xavier took it to them, punched them in the mouth. They look really good. They've got some dudes. Soleil Boom, really good. Colby Jones, really good. Nunji's very good. They're dangerous. Very dangerous. Then Penn State, Texas.
Penn State couldn't buy a bucket from 3 really until Dredd started to knock some down late. But, Funk, if he makes a couple of those, who knows? Because Penn State clawed their way back in that game and they just kind of ran out of gas.
Texas was not a good matchup for them. Way bigger, way more athletic.
The guy that averaged like 8 points a game went off
like
career high
or something like that. Gisu.
One off his career high. He had a great guy. Guy's as long as a giraffe.
But impressive season for Penn State. I mean, we thought they were going to be horrible. And they made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament. Hopefully they can keep Shrewsbury. I'd back up that Brinks truck because I wouldn't want to lose him if I was Penn State.
No, he's a good coach. Definitely a good coach.
Very good coach. This one's hilarious. I had Kansas winning the national championship. Lose to Arkansas. Coached by the Must Bus. Hilarious. Like, dude takes his shirt off and starts waving it after they win.
Doing the Who Big Suey call.
Crazy. I mean, that was a phenomenal basketball game, first and foremost.
Yeah,
back and forth, athletes everywhere, a lot of NBA talent. Arkansas is really good. They're so long. I mean, that Devo Davis guy is a stud. Then you got Ricky Council, the number 1, is really good. The number 4, Nick Smith, that guy's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. He's hardly plays because he was hurt for most of the season. Crazy.
Yeah, that's a good team.
But Kansas, what a disappointing end of the season. A lot of people picked them to win, and then they lose. I mean, that's the
another
great
blue blood out.
It's the
Kansas,
of the
Duke,
tournament.
Kentucky, all gone.
Yep, about 2 blue bloods remain. That's Michigan State and UCLA, really. But yeah, then we had St. Mary's, UConn. St. Mary's kind of punched them in the mouth, and UConn said, "No, we're not screwing around here."
Yeah.
And just blitzed them. Looked really good. TCU Zaga, nice, good game. Zaga is down at half. Timmy ends up scoring 17 second half points, scores 28 in the game. I mean, love him or hate him, the dude can score, and he's really good at it. Even though that mustache is really stupid looking. Gonzaga to their 8th straight Sweet 16. How about that?
Impressive.
Closest team to that is 4.
And Izzo's made 15. He's got the most for any current college coach, tied with Calipari for the most Sweet 16.
It's crazy. Then Northwestern UCLA, I did not catch.
I caught a lot of that game, and Northwestern acquitted themselves well. They played really hard. They had a chance. UCLA's just got. Jaime Jaquez just he took
He's
over.
so good.
He's good. They're a very veteran team.
El
They're a
Diablo.
good defensive team. But Bowie and Audige, they made some plays and they kept them in it. And Northwestern gave it a run. They definitely gave it a run and gave it a shot, but they ran out of gas against a much better team. But still, they did well for themselves for sure.
Yeah, that's round 2.
That's round 2. All right, let's go to let's look at the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. So first, I'm going to throw a couple facts out at you, and then we'll go through and we'll kind of rehash and we'll repick going forward. Some of the seeds: South 27, East 23, Midwest 11, so almost chalk in the Midwest, and West 17. Conference breakdown: 3 from the SEC in the Big East, 2 from the Big 12, which everybody thought was the best conference all year. 1 from the Mountain West, 1 from the Ivy, 1 from Conference USA, 1 Big 10, 1 AAC, 1 ACC, 1 WCC, 1 Pac-12. So right now the SEC and the Big East are really the class with the Big 12 right there. Yes, you have 2 number 1s remaining. Yes, and even the re-ranks, people still like those 2 as the top 2 teams. I would venture to guess that there's as much of a chance that that's not going to happen as there is.
Yeah, I don't think. I'm going to go out on a limb and say neither of the number 1 seeds make the freaking Final Four. I'm going to go on. I think that's going to happen. I think we're going to get a Creighton or Michigan State / Tennessee, Texas, and UCLA.
All right, well, let's get to the picks then. So we have Bama against Creighton. Sorry, that's the
Bama versus San Diego State. I think
Bama's
Bama's gonna. I think Bama wins a close one. I do. Low, like in the 70s, which for Bama they usually score in the 80s, 90s. I think it'll be in the 70s.
That's a Friday matchup at 6:30.
And then Creighton, I think Creighton's going to win by double digits.
Creighton, Princeton, yeah. I mean, I think Princeton will give them a run for at least half that game, but I think Creighton wins that. I agree. I think Bama wins. And then you have Bama, Creighton,
I got Creighton.
Which is what I had in my original bracket, Bama, Creighton, and I'm going to stick with Creighton to get to the Final Four.
I'm going with Creighton, too.
I think the way they're playing, and they just have the right mix of everything. They follow that Ken Pom kind of stat that you want. In fact, while I'm at it, I'll tell you who's still left in that Ken Pom. Top 40 offense, top 22 defense. Houston, number 9 offense, number 4 defense. Bama, number 18 offense, number 3 defense. UCLA, number 21 offense, number 2 defense. Connecticut, number 3 offense, 14D. Texas, 15 offense, 10D. Tennessee is number 60 on offense, number 1 on defense. So that's Kentucky. Tennessee would definitely be an outlier. So would Gonzaga, number 1 on offense, but number 75 on defense.
Yikes.
Creighton is 24 on offense, 13 on defense. So that's why I'm sticking with it. Bama rates a little bit higher than them in those categories, but San Diego State 69 05D, Xavier 7 offense, 63D, Arkansas 50 offense, 15 defense, Kansas State 47-17, Florida Atlantic 30-36, Michigan State 38-31, Miami of Florida 11 and 108 on defense, so a good offensive team. And then you got to go all the way down to Ken Pom number 91, Princeton, and 100 on defense, 96 on offense. So for what it's worth, following the footsteps of the Ken Pom top 40, top 22 rule, Bama, Creighton definitely both win. And then I'm going to go with Creighton.
Yeah, I am too. East.
So you got Florida Atlantic and Tennessee. That could be interesting.
I could see Florida Atlantic winning.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go Tennessee.
They're pretty athletic. Tennessee might be the first time they missed their point guard is in that game, but I think Tennessee's big. They're strong. They're experienced. I think Tennessee wins that game. They have a really good defense and a pretty average offense, but we're going to go with Tennessee there. I think that they win that one. And then you got Michigan State, Kansas State. At this time of the year, coaching matters almost as much as anything else. I mean, obviously your roster and your players matter because they're the ones who play the game. But, Kansas State, I have this feeling of while they're talented and they've got the great story, about the guy from Florida who had collapsed on the court against Florida State and came back and he's probably their best player, aside from their little tiny point guard who's a baller. Kansas State maybe in a little bit of we're happy to be there. We're excited to be in the Sweet 16. Look at where we were. Picked to finish last. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying it's going to be easy because I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think Michigan State wins that game.
Coaching prevails.
Coaching prevails. I think Walker can handle Noel. I think, probably, who do you put on Johnson?
Hogard.
He's a little bit bigger than Hogard maybe, but probably him.
Yeah, but Hogard guarded Murray.
And Michigan State has been better at certainly on defense, but better at even rebounding the last couple of games. I think their 3-point shot's going to find its way back, and I think Michigan State's going to win that game. I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a close game. Michigan State, Izzo has won something like 26 games by 7 points or less in the tournament. So he knows how to win close games, and that's, again, a testament to coaching. So I think Michigan State wins that game.
Michigan State, Tennessee to go to Houston.
It's going to be reminiscent of Michigan State, Tennessee in 2010 in St. Louis. That was a five
versus
they were like a
7, maybe
6 or
7,
something like that. That's, I don't know. I said to my buddies in Orlando, mark my words as we got to like the last 3 minutes of the Marquette game. I'm like, if we can find a way to finish this game and win this game, I think we get to the Final Four. Not because we're the best team, because we're not. And you look at like Fox Sports re-rank, they have Michigan State out of the Sweet 16 ranked number 13 or 14 out of the teams. That's fine. I just think the coaching, the prep, and it's not just Izzo, it's his assistants.
His assistants have been dynamite.
You got a dynamic scorer like Walker. If Hogard can finish around the basket and make a freaking free throw would be great. If Mahdi can continue to harness that energy, you can count on Joey this year.
Aikens has been a great
Aikens
defender,
has been good.
shooter.
Here's the thing. Hall's the wild card. If Hall can step up and play like Hall can, I think Michigan State doesn't necessarily cruise, but I think it's a little easier for them. And I still think Michigan State finds a way to scratch and claw their way as for the second time under Tom Izzo as a 7 seed to the Final Four.
Michigan State's going to the Final Four. I'm calling it right now.
Yep. All bets are off once they get there. We'll talk about that next week. But I really just I like enough. They make me nervous, but at the same time, I like
They're
enough of the
clicking at the right time.
And there's a togetherness to the team. Most of the teams that are left certainly have that, but I don't know. I'm going Michigan State Creighton in the Final Four.
The best coach left gets his team there. Houston, Miami. I think this could be a whale of a game. I do. It's strength on strength.
Yeah,
really
very
good
athletic.
offense versus really good defense. It's athletes all over the board. It's small ball. Get your popcorn out, folks. This is going to be a ball game. I think Houston,
Miami's defense is not very
that's
good.
the
though.
issue. This could be a shootout. If Miami shoots the ball well, I think it could be a shootout because Houston can
Both teams
score.
have good offense.
Houston can score the
Difference
rock.
is Houston can clamp it down.
I think Houston wins.
So
this
I think
game.
Houston wins this
Yep.
game.
Xavier, Texas. I'm excited for this one.
I think that's going to be a great game. I'm going to ride with what I picked to begin with, which was Texas. I actually I had picked Texas coming out of the Midwest all along. I also had Houston getting upset in the Sweet 16, so we'll rehash that here in a minute. But I think that could be one of the best games. Well, actually, there's another good game in that half the bracket in Gonzaga, UCLA. Those 2-3 matchups, both of them are going to be phenomenal
delicious
games. But I think Texas will find a way to pull out the win there.
I'm going Texas as well. And then Houston, the in-state rivalry to play in your state. Houston trying to get back to the hometown Final Four. I'm rolling with the Longhorns. First Final Four since when? What have they ever been?
Yeah,
Wild.
that's the one that Rick Barnes had was they went once with them. Maybe it was when it was Durant. Maybe
No,
it was there.
it wasn't.
Not when Durant was there, but he was the coach. I know that. It was the 2000, early 2000. It was Marquette.
Oh, so they
was
beat
there
us.
Too. Yeah,
They beat us. It was 03.
yeah.
That was the only time they'd been in the Final
Marquette
Four.
was there with D
2003.
Wade. I got Texas. I'm riding with Texas. They're one of the teams that I picked originally to go to the Final Four. But I think Houston and Texas could be a great game as well.
If you want to see athletes,
Yeah.
Arkansas, UConn.
Arkansas UConn's going to be a crazy game. UConn's playing really well right now. I think matchup wise, it probably benefits UConn a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise me to see Arkansas win.
I think
I'm going to go UConn.
I'm going to go UConn as well. I think they'll win, but I think it'll be a good game. Then we got the tournament rivalry game, Gonzaga and UCLA.
The Adam Morrison game, the
Jalen Suggs.
The Jalen Suggs, the year UCLA made a run as a play-in 11 seed. They've had some battles here. Two West Coast teams, both really good teams, both capable of making the Final Four, both capable of winning it. UCLA missing their best defensive player. They had
their best shooter rolled his ankle last night. Pretty good.
Yeah, against Northwestern, right? Yep. So, I don't know. I just think I'm going to stick with my original. I could definitely see UCLA winning this, but I'm going to stick with Gonzaga because that's what I picked to begin with. But UCLA definitely checks some of those boxes.
You know why I'm going UCLA? Guard play, and they're both well coached, but UCLA definitely really good coach.
UCLA fits the mantra.
UCLA plays better defense.
They do much better defense, and they're a pretty good offense. But I'm going to stick with Gonzaga, and then Gonzaga UConn. I had Kansas coming out of here, so I'm going to go with the Zags. I think they're going to get to the Final Four.
I got UConn, UCLA, Huskies, Final Four. You heard it first. You heard it here.
So next
week,
week,
I got a Final Four of Creighton, Michigan State, Houston, and UConn. How about that?
Creighton, Michigan State,
6, a 7, a 1, and a 4.
Creighton, Michigan State, Texas, and Gonzaga.
I love it.
So 6, 7, 2, 3. No ones. Yeah, it's going to be.
You want to do a quick ad?
It'll be epic. Yes, sir. We'll do. A quick word from our presenting sponsor, Team Anders Realty will help you find the home that best fits your needs, and they make the process simple and fun along the way. The Anders have served thousands of clients over 30 plus years in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area and are here to serve you today. Learn more at teamanders.com. All right, well, it wouldn't be a tournament, and especially because there's always upsets, but there were two pretty epic upsets this weekend. So we're going to have to do a Mount Rushmore of the biggest NCAA tournament upsets.
We're doing cumulative?
Yeah, and I'm going to say this. So I would say there's two automatics that
the ones over
the ones over the 16.
16 over the one.
And the only debate there is which one was bigger, and I'm going to go Fairleigh Dickinson was bigger. I think UVA was the number one overall seed when they lost to UMBC. That game was never close. And I think Virginia in their own way was made to be a fraud. But Fairleigh Dickinson, with all the things that we talked about, they're half D3, they're half D1, their budget differential, the fact that their director of media relations is a student. Not that has bearing on basketball, but we're talking about the total David versus Goliath. We're talking Hoosiers, Hickory versus South Bend Central. That type of thing. A team that didn't even win their conference championship and only got in because Merrimack isn't qualified to get in. All the things stacked against them, and they beat Purdue, who has probably the college basketball player of the year in Zach Edey, the immovable force who gets to sit in the lane for 20 out of 30 seconds every possession, and they win that game. So we're going to give them the top spot of Mount Rushmore over UMBC. Nothing against the Retrievers, certainly, but I think that Fairleigh Dickinson's was more improbable than that one was.
Yeah, I would agree. But those two are definitely in the in this Mount Rushmore. Now the other two are tough. I mean, I think. What was that? Was that Villanova that beat Georgetown? They were 9 seed.
They're an 8 seed
in the
championship game. Yep, and they had played 3 times already that year.
Is that one of the? I think that might be in there.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily consider that, but I think and they shot something 72% for the game. I mean, it was that was might have been when they just had the 45-second shot clock, and they kind of stalled out, and they Georgetown had Ewing, and I think it was their third Final Four in a row, and Villanova beat them, and it was impressive. Or maybe they didn't have Ewing then. That was 86. 85. Yes, they did still have Ewing. That was 85. Yeah, I mean, that's a good call. I think that's got to be right up there. I'll give you some of the 15-2s just to kind of give you a refresher.
St. Peter's.
Coppin State over South Carolina in 97. Whatever. South Carolina's in a blue blood. Richmond over Syracuse is a 15-2 in 1991 was a big deal. FGCU over Georgetown. FGCU, Dunk City. I don't know that Georgetown team was that impressive. Oral Roberts a couple of years ago against Ohio State. That was a very good Ohio State team. Santa Clara, 15, beat
Steve
Arizona
Nash.
as a 2. Princeton over Arizona. Arizona's lost twice as a 2 seed. 2 of 15.
Middle Tennessee.
Of course,
over
Michigan State. I think, honestly, as much as it pains me, I got to put that up there. Maybe as my, like you picked the Villanova Georgetown game. I might put this up there just because that Michigan State team probably was really 1 seed caliber, and that was the definition of a matchup issue in Middle Tennessee State. Just like totally shocked Michigan State. You had, it's funny on this list that I'm looking at, they don't even have Princeton over Arizona because they didn't think that much of it. Lehigh beating Duke a couple years ago, back in 2012 already. A 15 over 2, that was kind of a big deal. But I think the other one for me has got to be St. Peter's beating Kentucky. I mean, and then they went on a run and were picking teams off. Like that's a team like Fairleigh Dickinson. Like they practiced, their coach's offices had leaky ceilings from being below the pool. Like a very FDU-like story. So for me, it would be the 2-16s, of course, St. Peter's, and I probably would say just because we lived at the game. And another one that's not on this list actually is Hampton over Iowa State, which was a big one. That was a 15-2 as well. Iowa State was one of the favorites to win it that year, in 2001, when they lost to the Hampton Inns. That's not really their name, but so that's who I got. Anything else on that one?
No, those are all good.
And this again is the beauty of March Madness. There's no way Fairleigh Dickinson would beat Purdue in a 7-game series. There's no way St. Peter's would have beaten Kentucky in a 7-game series, or Middle Tennessee State beat Michigan State in a 7-game series. But that's why March is called March Madness, and why March is so fantastic, is anything can happen, and there's so much parity anymore because guys that don't play at the big schools transfer down and they see this chance to play. And coaches are getting that much smarter, and they can find ways to devise plans to win these games. And it's a blast to watch. We're spoiled every year. Every year, just when you think, oh, you can't get, maybe it starts slow and you're like, oh, there's not going to be any upsets. Wham, a 15 beats a 2, a 14 beats a 3. This is a rare year where a 12 didn't beat a 5, 13 beats a 4. And this year we had the double bonus of a 15 beating a 2 and a 16 beating a 1. Both are historical because still the odds are so low that those happen. We're just spoiled. We're spoiled as college basketball fans, that's for sure.
Absolutely. All right, last spot of the day.
Well, back to golf. So I had to punt and throw 2 new names at Ryan because both the guys that I picked just off the cuff last week didn't even play in the Valspar. And I ended up picking a guy who almost won, Spieth.
Spieth. We both picked people that was on Spieth.
And then I had my other guy was Harmon, who had like the blow-up hole of the century. I didn't finish reading the story, but something like had 7 errant shots on one hole and went from he dropped 64 spots in one hole on the leaderboard and missed the cut. So
crazy, yeah. We both had 75 combined for both of us. Guy that won, I met him, Taylor Moore, nice guy. Played in the Corn Ferry Tour.
And this weekend we got the WGC in Austin.
Last time ever.
Last time that's there, or the last time they were playing
Last time ever, I think they're playing this.
Oh, it's too bad because I love this tournament. It's fun to watch.
64 guys.
Yeah, it's the tournament field. Scheffler won it last year.
Wednesday.
I got Cantlay and Morikawa as my 2 guys that went through the whole roster, and I've already picked a lot of those guys.
I've got Horschel and Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it would not surprise me to see Scotty win. I think a guy that's steady like Scotty. Morikawa is a great ball striker, not a great putter. But it's it's a guy like that's just steady. That's probably going to win this. But Spieth played well. He's been playing well of late. JT's been playing decent as of late. So maybe they could get the win as well. Then you got the Punta Cana. I'm rooting for Dahmen in that one.
Yeah, he's
We're
playing
not,
that.
We're not picking it, but he's, I think, the favorite in that one. So
And guess what, folks?
That's my pick.
2 weeks from this Thursday, we'll stroll down Magnolia Lane to Augusta National Golf Club.
It's a beautiful thing. And
Boy,
I'll give you a
oh
little bit
boy.
of a course review. Shout out to Anthony at Orange Lake Resort down in Orlando. Buddy Chris set us, he and me and Dauber up for a nice boys weekend celebrating our 50th birthdays this year. They got it's a nice huge Holiday Inn, like timeshare type of resort, lots of pools and condos and all kinds of stuff. Restaurants on site. It was great. I didn't even know what to expect and loved it. They had a kind of an executive course with 6 par 3s and 3 par 4s that we played first. Then we played, they have an Arnold Palmer designed, it's called Legends Walk. It's a 9-hole walking par 3 course that's also the only night golf in Orlando. We did not play it under the lights, so that was a miss, but the tournament was going on, so maybe the next time we'll do that. Fun, all kinds of variety. 220-yard par 3s to 120-yard par 3s and sand. And I mean, it was a legit course and a fun course to play. So played those on Thursday. Friday played Legends, which is an Arnold Palmer course, has a replica of Bay Hill. I believe it was Anthony said who's the pro there, Bay Hill 18 as their number 10 hole. Really great course. Kind of reminded me in some ways of like a Forest Dunes. I mean, obviously the grass
cool.
wasn't that way, but it was a similar to that kind of cut through the woods. We learned yesterday when we replayed it with the pro there, who's Chris's buddy, that it butts up to Animal Kingdom, and you can hear the lions in the morning, and you can, it's just like you can hear the animals rustling around and stuff. It's kind of cool. It butts up against the nature reserve. Hear people yelling when they're riding on Everest and whatever else. But that was a really fun course, kind of interesting. Par 37 on the front, par 35 on the back. Lots of good holes where you have to think a little bit about what you're doing. Very fair course, but a difficult course for sure. And then on Saturday, we played in between as Dauber would like to call it, the condo course, where condos were definitely lining both sides. It was a tight course, a little bit of a shorter course, lots of water. They do a pretty good job of getting the big gators out of there. So we saw, half dozen or so small, like 3-footers, and then maybe 1 5-footer. But all the big ones, they kind of rustle up and take them to a wildlife place to get them away from all the guests. But that was fun too in its own way, because it was just, you had to make some shots and you had to, figure out your carries over water and stuff like that. So it was fun. I would definitely go back. It's not what you necessarily think of when you think of Orlando golf. You think of Bay Hill, you think of Champions Gate, you think of, Celebration. I'm missing a bunch of other ones. There's Mystic Dunes. There's some good courses.
A lot of really good golf.
There's some really, Orange County National. There's some really good golf courses in Orlando. Don't sleep on this place. It was reasonable as heck. Lots of stuff right there at the place. Not bad. It's right up against Disney if you want to take off and go to Disney for a day. I definitely would go back and play golf there. So that was fun.
Nice. Well, that's it. That's golf. Sprint. 4 quick ones here. What's the coldest temperature you would want now? I know you played in very cold before, but what would be the coldest temperature you would have to be for you to play golf? Like, if it was below this temperature, you would not.
Well,
play.
I mean, it depends, because I played in like 36 degrees in a sideways rain because I was on a golf trip. Like, right, I'm going to go because I'm already committed. I'm already paid. Yesterday, everybody looked at me like I was nuts down in Florida because it was only 54 when we started to play after it had been in the mid-80s the day before, and I was the only one in shorts playing. I came home today in shorts. I would say, like, to legit look out the window and say it's sunny, it's a little breezy, I'll go play today. As long as it's sunny and the wind isn't too bad, I think in the mid-40s I would do it at this time of the year, not in the middle of the summer. And maybe in the fall I would do it to get another round in. But
yeah, I'd say 40. It'd have to be sunny. If it's cold, no. Hell no. Does Juwan Howard bolt Michigan after this disappointing season back to the NBA?
I think he does. I think Jet Howard is going to get a look at from the NBA because of who knows what. I guess he fits the bill for NBA guys. I've said it almost all year to my buddies. I think he goes. I just don't think he's a college coach. I think Michigan would probably upgrade if that's the case.
I want him to stay.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I'd like him to stay, even though it's a clown show there. But my money is that he's going to go.
What would be your main course for your Masters Champions dinner? I saw Scotty came out with his last week. It looks really good.
Ooh, main course. That's a good question. I would go with. I think I'd go with like a 14-ounce New York strip, maybe like like not. I don't know how you say it prepared. Chris would have to tell me because he's been in the restaurant business. But basically, like blue cheese encrusted.
You could do like Oscar. You could do for some people Oscar style, with the crab.
No, not for me. But I'm gonna go blue cheese encrusted New York strip, and I'm gonna go Mom's Brussels sprouts, which are Brussels sprouts, bacon, blue cheese, because I love my blue cheese. I'm gonna go with a good, just like house salad with fresh tomatoes, not cherry tomatoes. And then what else I'm going to go with? I'd probably go with some good garlic mashed potatoes with that. That sounds like a good meal to me.
Yeah, I'd do some sort
and
of...
Rachel's chocolate chip cookies.
Some sort of steak, like a salmon.
I heard Scotty's compared to an Applebee's menu.
Yeah, well, sounds good to me.
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Dessert's a chocolate chip cookie skillet with ice cream. What a guy.
Yeah.
Sounds like our kind of guy.
Exactly.
OKG. Final question. Can we please, this is just rhetorical, can we please get Grand Rapids to try and host a freaking NCAA tournament first and second round?
I don't know why we haven't.
I think they could now because they fit the criteria.
They have the
now,
hotel rooms. Van
Andels, the airport's big enough. All this stuff.
Van Andels on the smaller side, but here's the thing.
Here's
the thing. Just like I said for the women's, go smaller. The men's should go smaller for the first round because here's the thing.
Or do the first four there.
Is as soon as teams lose in the first day. Now, there a lot of Michigan State fans traveled right to Columbus or whatever. I'm telling you, you would pack a 12,000 seat place and it would be impossible to get tickets and just the atmosphere would be electric. I think Grand Rapids should absolutely. And if they say, you know what, you got to add 2,500 seats to Van Andel, do it. Do it.
Yeah, I would. That'd be unbelievable. All right, that's it. That's 116. Appreciate you guys listening. Let us know your Sweet 16 Elite 8 picks if you feel so inclined. But enjoy the games this week. Hopefully, the Spartans can pull through and get to Final Four number 9 in my lifetime. That'd be crazy. But yeah, appreciate you guys listening.
In the meantime, as Mr. March, Tom Izzo, often says, and will come through this weekend, players play, tough players win.